Diane had learned, over many years of family gatherings, how to arrive at the right angle, not too eager, not visibly reluctant. Shoulders relaxed enough that no one could accuse her of being difficult, but not so open that she'd be caught off guard. She'd developed this posture the way you develop any skill, through repetition, through consequence, through the specific education of being the older sister in a family that had quietly decided, somewhere along the way, that Kelsey was the one worth celebrating. She brought a gift. She'd helped pay for the catering, $200 transferred to Kelsey's account 3 weeks ago when Kelsey texted asking if Diane could help a little with costs. Diane had helped. She always helped. She was not sure this had ever been noticed. Cooper was upstairs in the guest room with a sitter. Diane had arranged this before she arrived, because she knew the shape of these evenings, and because there were things she didn't want him to hear that might require explaining later. He was 6. He still believed, without complication, that his mother was the most capable person in any room she entered. She intended to protect that belief for as long as possible. The party had the feeling of all parties in her mother's social circle, warm in a way that had edges if you knew where to press. Patricia moved through the room with a fullness of attention she reserved for guests she was proud of, and a different, flatter quality of attention for Diane, who received a cheek kiss, and you made it in the tone of someone noting the arrival of weather. Kelsey was luminous. That was the honest word. New degree, new apartment, engagement ring, that caught the light every time she gestured, and she gestured often. Diane watched her sister work the room, and felt the familiar mixture of genuine affection and something older and sadder underneath it. The feeling of standing outside a window, looking at a room you grew up in. Marcus was at the side wall with a drink. Kelsey's fiancé. Diane had always found him hard to read, steady in a way that could be warmth or could be simply the absence of turbulence. They'd spoken maybe a dozen times across 2 years. He was unfailingly polite. She'd never been sure what he actually thought about anything. The toast began well enough. Kelsey took the microphone with the confidence of someone accustomed to being listened to. And she was funny, and she was warm, and the room was with her fully. She talked about her program, her professors, her future, and then she pivoted, the way people do when they think they're being charming, and she said it, "My sister's here too. Single mom. Nobody wanted her, but she showed up." The room laughed. Not all of it, not viciously. Most of them the way people laugh at parties when something lands with the shape of a joke, and laughing is easier than the alternative. Patricia added something from her corner, not into a microphone, just into the air. "She's only here to use people, you know how she is." A few more laughs. Smaller Diane did not move. Her face did not change. She held her glass at a consistent height and looked at a point slightly above the crowd and breathed through her nose the way she had taught herself to breathe in these moments. Steadily, without drama, without giving anyone the satisfaction of watching her absorb it visibly. She thought about Cooper upstairs. She thought about the drive. She thought about $200. She did not leave. Leaving proved something she had decided a long time ago she would not prove. Marcus set down his drink. She noticed at first. The setting down, deliberate. Then he was standing, which was different from how he'd been standing before, and then he had crossed the room in the particular way of someone who has made a decision quietly and is now simply executing it. He picked up his glass. He looked at it. Then he picked up the microphone instead. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look at Kelsey with anything that could be called anger. He said that Diane had driven 2 hours tonight, arranged childcare, contributed to this event, and shown up for her sister, and that she deserved to be introduced that way. He raised his glass toward Diane. He said her name once, clearly, like it was something worth saying. Then he set the microphone down and stood where he was. The room was quiet in a way it hadn't been before. Diane looked at her sister. Kelsey was not crying. She wasn't performing anything. She had the expression of someone who has just discovered that a person they thought they fully understood contains a boundary they hadn't mapped. She looked at Marcus. Marcus looked back at her, not unkindly, but without apology. Something passed between them that Diane wasn't meant to see and saw anyway. The party continued. Parties do. It got louder in the deliberate way of people collectively deciding to move past something without discussing it. Patricia refreshed her drink and spoke to the woman beside her about something unrelated. Nobody made another speech. Diane went upstairs 20 minutes later, not hiding. She was past hiding. She just wanted to sit near Cooper, who was asleep on top of the guest bed covers, one shoe off and one shoe still on, breathing with the uncomplicated steadiness of someone who had not yet learned to brace for rooms. She sat in the chair beside him for a while. The noise of the party came up through the floor, muffled and distant. She thought about Marcus standing up. She thought about how it took someone with no history in this family, no old debt or old injury, to say a plain true thing inside it. She didn't know what that meant for Kelsey. She didn't know what it meant for Marcus and Kelsey, for the relationship, for any of the things that would unfold in the weeks after tonight. She knew that she had been in a room and someone had said her name like it mattered and the room had heard it. That was not nothing. She was still deciding how much it was. She drove home after midnight. Cooper slept in the back seat, relocated from the guest bed to the car with the boneless ease of a sleeping child. The highway was quiet. The radio was off. She thought she might reach out to Marcus at some point, not to thank him exactly, because thank you felt like the wrong shape for it. More just to acknowledge that they'd both been in that room and something real had happened in it. She hadn't decided. She pulled into her driveway and sat for a moment after she cut the engine. The porch light was on. She'd left it on before she left. She always left it on, ever since the year after Cooper's father and the first winter alone in this house, when she decided that coming home to a dark house was a thing she simply didn't have to do anymore. Small decision. Hers entirely. She got out and unbuckled her son and carried him inside, and the house was lit and quiet, and she locked the door behind her.